We'll begin with this section of An-Nahw al-Wadih. It's a little bit disappointing that nobody really went back and watched the class from last week, although everybody missed it except a few sisters. Only 2 people went back and watched, and it's important. This stuff is very important that we need to learn. If we're going to learn, we don't do it 7 days a week. We don't do it 5 or 6 days a week. We do it 1 day a week because we know it's heavy on people. But it's important that we go back. So we're going to do a real quick review before we do this because it's necessary. Okay, the things we did last week, we talked about the fi'l, which is mu'tal akhir and sahih akhir. Mu'tal akhir, basically verbs can end in 2 ways. They can be sahih or they can be mu'tal. If it's sahih, it ends in any of the letters of the alphabet but these 3, the alif, the waw, or the ya. So jalasa, sahih. Dhahaba, sahih. Akala, sahih. Right? Whereas there are lots of examples. Give me 1 second. You have, for instance, alqa ends with an alif maksura here, right? Da'a, to make dua, right? Yalqa, right? Yabni, yabni. All these end in a, and we have sarru, sarru. All these end in an alif, a ya, or a waw. These are called mu'tal akhir. What is the meaning of this right now? It's starting to get too difficult? No. The meaning is that all these rules that we're talking about, that we're about to talk about, they're going to have to do with sahih. Those which are mu'tal, they end in an alif, a waw, or a ya, then these rules are not going to necessarily apply to them in the same way because they end in letters which the vowels are not going to necessarily always be apparent on them. So these rules that we're going to learn are going to be dealing with those verbs which end with sahih endings, meaning every letter except the alif, a waw, or a ya. Then number 2, words in Arabic are mu'rab and mabni. They're mu'rab and mabni. Mu'rab means the endings change, and mabni means the endings do not change. Now, in Arabic, we talked about we got 3 types of words. We got an ism, a fi'l, and a harf. There's 3 types. And then inside the fi'l, we have 3 types: past, present, and command. So that's 5 types of words we have now. Ism, 3 types of fi'ls, and harf. From amongst those which are mabni, meaning they do not change, are the huruf. Do not change. Huruf do not change. The fi'l amr does not change. The command verb does not change. And the fi'l madi does not change. So the only thing we're dealing with in the i'rab of grammar is asma, names, and the fi'l mudari, the present tense verb. So we've eliminated 60% of our kinds of words from dealing with grammar, because the rest of them are mabni. So we're dealing with nouns and present tense verbs. Everything else in grammar is mabni. Then we have An-Nahw al-Bina, the types of bina, the types of something being mabni. Meaning when something is mabni, what are we going to say? We're going to say is mabni ala sukun. Mean it's built, it's built solid, it doesn't change on a sukun. It stays on a sukun. It stays on a fatha. It stays on a dhamma. It stays on a kasra. If something is mabni, it's not mabni مجرور, مبني, منصوب, مبني, مرفوع. No, it's مبني على سكون, فتح, ضمة, كسرة. And then, أنواع الإعراب, the types of إعراب are مرفوع, منصوب, مجرور, مجزوم. Right? مرفوع, منصوب, مجرور, مجزوم. This is the type of word. When we're talking about a word that changes, we say it's مرفوع, it's منصوب, it's مجرور, it's مجزوم. Or if it doesn't change, we say it's built upon a sukoon, a fatha, dhamma, or kasra. It's solid upon that, built upon that, stays on that, however you want to say it in English. So that's what we covered. Now, if you would have listened to the class, for those who didn't, then they would have gotten a lot of that information with more exercises and examples. But it's really easy, because a lot of that we know, but to put it in perspective with examples would be a lot better for us. So we get to something which is built upon this lesson, which is أهوال البناء الفعل الماضي. The conditions of bina are being stagnant or staying in one way, however you want to say it, for the الفعل الماضي, for the past tense verb. For the past tense verb. The types of bina. So we said past tense verbs are bina. They don't change. And they don't change. But there are conditions. Past tense verbs are many. They say فعل, فعلت, فعلت, فعلتي, فعلت, فعلوا, فعلنا, فعلتم, فعلتن, فعلنا. These are all past tense verbs. But they're not all in the same condition as far as they're being mabni. We need to find out what those conditions are, inshallah ta'ala. Let's look at this first set of examples. The first one, ishtadda al-barad. Ishtadda al-barad. The cold became more severe. The cold became more severe. Ishtadda, to become more severe. Al-barad. Ishtadda al-baradu. The cold became more severe. Here we see the verb ending in a fatha. Right? The next one, Abdullah.
Taral Gubar.
Thara al-gubar. Thara meaning al-gubar is the dust. Right? The dust. Right? Like, you know, we're talking about a Muslim country, we're talking about the Arabic language, we're talking about the dust, we're talking about outside. You know, you guys have thunderstorms, we have windstorms, right? We have dust storms, or like fog, right? So thara al-gubar meaning the dust, the dirt, the sand was stirred up. The gubar is like dust, was stirred up. Thara. It's a past tense verb. All these in this are past tense verbs. It has a fatha. Next one, Zubair.
نزل المطر.
Nazal al-matar. The rain came down. The rain came down. It's on a fatha. Right? Nazal al-matar. It has a fatha. If we look at the next section, Al-awladu la'ibu. Al-awladu la'ibu. The children play. Or played. Played is a past tense. La'ibu, past tense. What do we see here? We see a dhamma. La'ibu, dhamma. Abdullah, number 5.
Arijalu Safiru.
Ar-rijalu safaru. Ar-rijalu safaru. Safaru, the men traveled. So we see here a dhamma. Number 6, Zubair.
Don't hear you, Zubair.
Yeah, he went out and came right back in. I don't know if something happened or what. Anyway, al-ummalu ta'ibu. Al-ummal ta'ibu. The men became tired. Ta'ibu. They tired or became tired. 1 second, ya akhwan. So we see here ta'ibu, they became tired, past tense, with a dhamma. One second. The next section, fatahtu al-baba. Fatahtu al-baba. I opened the door. I opened the door. We see here, and this may be confusing. This may be confusing that this is open, or this is on the verb here is a sukoon. Right? Then if you read this one, Abdullah.
Which one?
Number 7, the next 8, number 8, the next one.
تلقفت
تلقفت تلقفت
تلقفت
نعم
القرى
القرة تلقفت القرة تلقفت تلقف means to snatch, right? تلقفت القرة, I snatched the ball. It's mabni on a sukoon, right? We'll explain all this inshallah. Zubair, you with us yet?
Yes, can you hear me?
Now I can
Yeah, I heard you the both times, but I guess I was out. أخذت جائزة.
أخذت جائزة. I took a prize. I took a prize. جائزة, a prize. أخذت جائزة. This is mabni on a sukoon. Right? And I said, we're
Sisters
going to
asking if there's sound.
Yeah, I gave it this, but she just has to go. I mean, we're talking and
Okay.
yeah. The next section, صدقت في قولك. صدقت في قولك. You said the truth in your statement. صدقت في قولك. We see this sukoon. Abdullah.
أدلت في حكمك
عدلت في حكمك. عدل, for to be just. عدلت, you were just. في حكمك, in your ruling. عدلت في حكمك, you were just in your ruling. عدل, here مبني على سكون. زبير. زبير. أحسنت إلى الناس. أحسنت إلى الناس. You did good to the people. أحسنت, you did good. You ask a question and someone answers it right, you can tell them أحسنت. If you see your child do something and they were really nice, they put the dishes in the sink, or they put the picked up something, put it in the trash, whatever. You see them do something good, you tell them ahsanta to a boy, ahsanti to a girl, ahsantum to a group, right? Ahsanta, ahsanta, you did good to the people. The next one was al-banatu ta'allamna al-hiyaka. Al-banatu, the girls, ta'allamna al-hiyaka. They learned knitting. Knitting. Hiyaka is knitting. تعلمنا الحياكة. Here the تعلم is مبني على سكون. Right? Abdullah, number 14.
الأمهات أتأمن. Okay, 2. الأمهات أتأمن أولادهن.
أولادهن. No.
Okay, أولادهن.
The mothers, al-ummahat, the plural of ummahat, al-ummahat, the mothers, at'amna awladahunna. They feed their children. They feed their children. Awladahunna, their children. We see at'amna is mabni ala sukun. At'ama becomes at'am because of the noon and niswa here. And we'll talk about all that. Al-fatayatu rattabna al-ma'ida. Al-fatayat, the young girls, rattabna al-ma'ida. They set the ma'ida, the table, basically. They set the table. They put in place, they made order to the table, meaning they set the table. Rattabna al-ma'ida. Rattabna, rattaba becomes rattab due to this noon and niswa here. Zubair, you back with us? Zubair. Abdullah, read number 16.
خرجنا إلى الحقول.
خرجنا إلى الحقول. We went out to the fields. We went out to the fields. خرج, when there's noon, alaf here for nahnu is attached. It's mabni ala sukun. We'll talk about what all this means, inshallah. Right now we're reading the examples. استنشقنا الهواء النقي. Naam, I hear you now, inshallah. Go ahead and read number 17. We don't hear you now. I don't know what's going on. استنشقنا الهواء النقي. استنشقنا. Istinshaq. If anyone knows what istinshaq is with a long istinshaq, that's the noun here, means when you make wudu, you suck the water into your nose. You suck the water into your nose when you're making wudu. Al-madmada is to take the water into your mouth, swish it around. Al-istinshaq is to suck the water into your nose before blowing it out. So istinshaqna al-hawa al-naqi. Al-hawa is air. Al-naqi is pure. Al-hawa al-naqiya is going to be a fatah here because it's pure air. It's an adjective, a not. Istinshaqna al-hawa al-naqi. We breathed in the pure air, meaning we like that, with a long, good breath, like that. You know, istinshaqna al-hawa al-naqi. We see istanshaqa is with a sukoon. And Zubair, the last one.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
قطفنا الأزهار.
قطفنا الأزهار, meaning we picked the flowers. We picked the flowers. قطفنا. Qatafa is mabni ala sukun. So now what does all this mean? This means, let's look at our words all on one verb. We have fa'ala. he did. فعلت, she did. Now, I'm trying to find a color here that would be different from what we have there, and you can see it still. Maybe, even though that's too light. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay, fa'ala, right, is he did it. Fa'alat is she did it. Right? This ta here is called ta at-ta'nith. The ta at-ta'nith meaning the feminine ta. Ta at-ta. Let me write it better. At-ta at-ta'nith. Ta at-ta'nith. Right? This ta here is ta at-ta'nith, meaning the feminine ta. So fa'ala as he did it. This ta with the sukoon on it is called ta at-ta'nith, meaning she did it. It takes fa'ala and makes it feminine. Then these next three tas, fa'alta, fa'alti, fa'altu, is you did it to a man, you did it to a woman, and I did it. As well as these two, fa'altum wa fa'altunna. The ta in these, even inside of these two, which there's more on the end of it, but the ta here is called ta al-mutaharrika. A-ta التاء المتحركة. المتحركة, meaning the ta which moves around or changes, because it's ta, ti, tu, tun, tunna, like this. So this is this. Then you have here fa'alu. Fa'alu is they did it. They did it. This wow here is called al-wow or wow al-jama'ah. Wow al-jama'ah, meaning shows a group. The wow which shows a group of people doing it. This noon here, fa'alna, is they did it. It's called noon and niswa. Noon. Do you have to know all this right now? No, but it's going to help you. Noon and niswa, the feminine noon, shows the noon of women, right? And then this na here is the damir. This na here is the damir, meaning the pronoun for nahnu, right? It's the fa'il for nahnu. So we did it. Whenever you add the ta ta'nith, no, not the ta ta'nith, take that out. Whenever you add the ta al-mutaharrika and the noon al-niswa and the na al-fa'il, then it's going to be mabni on a sukoon. If you have fa'ala or fa'ala with the ta'nith, it's going to be fa'alat, it's going to be mabni al-fatha. And if you have the waw al-jama'ah, it's going to be mabni ala-sukoon. Ala-damma, asif, ala-damma. That's how it's going to be. Now, what does that mean? That means no matter what I place before these verbs, it's always going to be that way, because they're mabni. So, if I say, for instance, I'm trying to think of something that I can put before. لعبوا. As an example, if I were to put, I'm trying to think, give me 1 second here. In other words, no matter what, just do it like this because I can't think of it. No matter what comes before this verb, if it's something which makes a verb mansoob or majzoom or then it's not going to change no matter what. It's always going to be mabni ala fatha or mabni ala damma or mabni ala sukoon in the rest of our examples. So we have mabni ala fatha in 2 cases. Fa'ala, fa'alat. Mabni ala sukoon in 7 cases. And mabni ala damma in 1 case. When we look at words, this is it. This ta is not part of the verb itself. Fa'al is the verb. Actually, fa'ala is the verb, but because we add this ta here, then it's going to be a sukoon on that lam. Because we add this t, it's going to be sukoon there. Because we add this tu, it's going to be sukoon there. And it's always going to be there. It's never ever going to change. Versus in a present tense verb, if we have yaf'alu, yaf'alu, if we put lam in front of it, or we put len in front of it first, if we put len in front of it first, then it's going to make it len yaf'ala. Right? Len yaf'ala. Because of the len. It's going to change it from len yaf'alu to len yaf'ala. And if we put a lam in front of it, lam yaf'al, it's going to be sukoon. But if it's by itself, it's going to be yaf'al. Yaf'alu. Yaf'alu. If we put len in front of it, it's going to change. If we put lam in front of it, it's going to change. This is mu'rab. The present tense verb is mu'rab. It changes. But the past tense verb is mabni. It does not change. It's always going to be that way. So if I say, if I go here and I say, for instance, naf'alu. This is fa'alna naf'alu. It's going to be the same thing. Naf'alu. But if I say len naf'alu, we're not going to do it. Len naf'ala. Lam naf'al. With a sukoon. To change. If I go up to one of the other ones, which is more difficult. Fa'alu. Fa'alu is they did. If we say yaf'aluna. 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 If I put len, let me erase that for a second, write it better. Len yaf'alu. Because I'm dropping my noon here. I'm dropping my noon and I'm making it mansoob. Len yaf'alu. Lam yaf'alu. They're going to look the same. In other words, the present tense verb changes. It's mu'rab. But the past tense verb never ever changes. And they don't change from these states. Fa'ala is always going to be fa'ala, no matter what's in front of it. Fa'alat is always going to be jalasat, dahabat, akalat, no matter what's before it. And these, for the rest of them, no matter what's in front of them, it's going to be the same. Nothing can change them from the apparent state that they're in. Because they're past tense verbs. Do we follow that? Abdullah?
Pretty much. Got to sink in.
It definitely got to sink in. Definitely, it has to sink in. But اشتد, ثار, نزل, صدق, عدل, أحسن, لعب, سافر, تعب, تعلم, أطعم, رتب, خرج, استنشق, فتح, تلقف, أخذ, قطف. They're all like this, but once that's all in he did it. But no matter what, ishtaddat. If this is something feminine here, and I have to say ishtaddat, then ishtaddat is different because of this, but it's still mabni ala fatha. If I say ishtadtu, then the dal is going to have a sukoon on it. Ishtadtu. Thurtu, right? Thurtu or thurtu, probably here. Thurtu, but as an example. Nazaltu, nazaltu. It's going to have a sukoon on it because of the ta. Nazaltu, nazaltu. It's going to have a sukoon now, like we have here, down here 7, 8, and 9, because I added the ta al-mutaharrika to it, right? The ta which moves around. So nazaltu, right? La'ibu, if I were to say al-walad and make it one, al-walad la'iba, la'iba. It's always going to end in a fatha. Mansub, mabni al-fatha. It's not mansub, it's mabni al-fatha, right? Mabni al-fatha, right? And then la'ibu, right? If I were to change it to la'ibta, you played, la'ibta, you played, then it's now mabni ala sukoon because I added the ta mutaharrika. If I add the waw jama'ah, it's mabni ala dhamma. If I don't add anything, it's mabni ala fatha. If I add ta al-mutaharrika or noon al-niswa, la'ibna. This is the noon al-niswa. They played. The girls played. They played. La'ibna, noon al-niswa. Or la'ibna. The noon al-fa'il. We played. La'ibna. Mabni ala sukoon in all those cases. It's either mabni ala sukoon, or it's its origin, which is mabni ala fatha, which is he and she, or it's mabni ala dhamma for waw jama'ah, for la'ibu, sadaqu, adalu, ahsanu, like this. Ta'allamu, at'amu, rattabu, kharaju, istanshaqu, qatafu. All that's going to be mabni ala dhamma. Any questions?
I have some questions.
Tafadhal.
And if I, if it's dumb, just tell me. But
It's dumb.
trying to figure out, there must be a reason why this is a part of the book. Is it what is it? First, let me ask this. It's actually telling us like the last letter of the root, how it changes. Like sometimes it's gonna be on a sukoon and sometimes it's gonna be on a fatha. Is that right?
And sometimes it's going to be on a dhamma. But why is it going to be there? And the fact that it never changes. It never changes. So we have to know that because past tense verbs never change. We said here, where's it at? Here.
So that's the main reason of this, to tell us that it never changes.
Well, yeah, to show us that it never changes and it's always going to be there, because as we had in the first week or last week when we started this new section, and we talked about words which are mabni and words which are mu'rab. Words which are mabni and words which are mu'rab. So we have, as far as words, we have kalam. Kalam is 3 types. Ism, fi'l, harf. It doesn't go outside those 3. The fi'l is madi, mudari', and amr. Now we have 5 types. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, words which are mabni and never ever change. Words which are mabni and never ever change are the harf. They never change. Min is always going to be min. Fi is always going to be fi. Right? It's never going to change. Huruf, aina, harf al-istifham. It's always going to be aina. It's never going to change ainu, aini. Always going to be what it is. The fi'l amr, ijlis, is always going to be this, or ijlisi, if you put a thing on it, right? What depends on its case. Ijlisi, right? But it's going to be mabni, just like those words we just did. It could be mabni on a dhamma, mabni on a sukoon, mabni on a kasra, like ijlisi, here, mabni on a kasra. Ijlisi, or actually mabni ala sukoon, because it's there. So then we have, this is mabni, fi'l amr is mabni, fi'l madi is mabni. So now when we start talking about entering in lan, an, idhin, kay, inna wa akhawatuha, kana wa akhawatuha, when we start adding in these things that can come before something, right? Idhin, walam, and la nahiya, and la nafiya, and all of that, they're never going to affect the huruf, the fi'l madi, and the fi'l amr. They're not going to affect those. So the only thing that's going to be affected in i'rab is an ism and a fi'l mudari. When we start talking about changing the endings, they're only going to change. When we talk about i'rab, the meaning of it is, according to the definition of al-ajrumiyya, the meaning of i'rab is تغيير أواخر الكلم لاختلاف الأوامل عليها. It means the changing of the end of a word due to the entrance of awamil, things which make changes on them. So when we have a word, something can come before it and can change it. That's called i'rab. But no matter what comes before a fi'l madi, it's not going to change. No matter what comes before a fi'l amr, it's not going to change. And no matter what comes before a harf, it's not going to change. Only focusing on an ism wal mudari. Now, when I say that, I say sadaqa. Does that mean that it's always going to be sadaqa? No, because you could add this ta on the end for sadaqa ta, but it becomes sadaqta. So this now is mabni ala sukoon. So we have to know this because we need to know how words are made stationary or they make their changes. Because we want to be able to know, because this nazala, if I were to put al-awladu nazalu, they came down. I just told you nazala is a past tense verb. It's mabni. It never changes. But here, I put a dhamma on it. What do you mean it never changes? Right? But it never changes from this dhamma. And so this is grammar. This is grammar. Some of it's technical. You're going to have to learn why it is and what it is. And it's going to help you understand, because what is this wow called? We don't care. It means plural to us. But it's called wow al-jama'. It helps you learn what the meaning of the word is and why is it mabni out on this. So the purpose is to show us what is mabni, because eventually, once we knock out all the mabni the mebni rules, we're going to get into i'rab and what changes the verbs and the nouns. The present tense verbs and the nouns, you're going to get into that, and then you have to figure out, you have to know, right? You have to know how number one, you have to know grammar-wise how it's mebni, right? It's not mebni ala fatha. This is not mebni ala fatha, it's mebni ala dhamma. So we have to know that, number one. But number two, once we get out of the mebni, we're going to get into the mu'rab, which is the essence of grammar. So we need to knock out all these simple ones first. And then we'll get into how the changes occur, because the changes are more than the not changes, if that makes sense. For instance, next time we have the conditions of the bina of the fil amr. How is a fil amr mebni? Right? Then we have certain words from the fil mudari, certain words from the fil mudari which become mebni. Certain words due to something that we add to them, they become mebni due to something that we add to them. So now we take out more of the verbs. But then after that, you're going to get into i'rab, the actual why. Mataru, for instance, al-babu became baba, and kurra became kurratu, became kurrata, and then as well verbs. So you're going to get into this. You're going to get into the roof. Why is it fatha? Why is it kasra? Why is it dhamma? Why is it sukoon? But first we're going to knock out all those words which don't change, and then we'll get into the words that do, so we can make it easy, because we get rid of a lot of our vocabulary. Like we said, there's 5 types of words. 5 types. The ism, 3 types of fill in the harf. We already got rid of 3 types, but we're going to talk about those 3 types of words that we got rid of, plus the fill mudari, and then we'll actually get into the i'rab. So we're going to knock out the easy stuff before you get into the hard stuff.
Inshallah.
So then you have a nasb al-mudari, right? You have the things which makes the fi'l mudari mansoob. Then you have the fa as-sababiyya, the fa of reason. So it's just part of grammar that you have to learn. Do you have to memorize it all? Did it already make sense to you and you didn't need it? That's fine. As long as you knew that fa'ala is always fa'ala and fa'alta is always fa'alta, then I'm telling you, skip the rest of this. Just know in the past tense verb, no matter what you put in front of it, it's not going to change. But if you want to know the grammar terms and all this, which eventually in the future will make more sense when you're trying to get into tafsir and the people who deviate, like the Mu'tazila and the Ash'ira, and how they use words, then you'll find the benefit of this information. As for right now, if you already know this, then the main thing you need to know, it never ever changes. It's always going to be on the sukoon. This is always going to be a dhamma there, no matter what's in front of it. This is always going to be a fatha, no matter what's in front of it. If it's too much, you know, to memorize the ta, ta'neeth, and ta mutaharrika, noon, and this one, the nad, fire, and wow, jamaat, no problem. If it's too much, like I said, this don't have to be memorized in one day anyway. We'll use this when we look at examples inside of Thalathatul Usul and Al-Arba'in An-Nawawiyya, like this. We'll just look at that. Any other questions? Anything not clear? If we read the text, maybe this will help. And then I'll cut off, and nobody's answering, so I'm assuming no, there are no questions. But I'll just read the qaida. Right? These things here, they're just explaining the fact that if you look, we'll see a fatha, a sukoon, and a waw, or a dhamma on the waw, right? So the qaida, al-fi'l madi, the past tense verb, yubna is built, al-fat is mabni, or stationary, however you want to use this, stationary al-fat, right? Illa, except إذا اتصلت به واو الجماعة, except if the waw al-jama'ah is connected to it. فَيُبْنَى عَلَى الضَّمِّ, then it's stationary on a dhamma. أو اتصلت به التاء المتحركة, or attached to it is the ta al-mutaharika, which is tu, ta, ti, tum, and tunna, right? Oh, noon and niswa, which is the noon for the women doing it, fa'alna, right? Or the na dalatu al-fa'il, the na of the fa'il, nahnu, but then it's fayubna ala sukoon, then it's built on a sukoon. So, or stationary is a better word, I guess. Yubna ala sukoon, then it's stationary on a sukoon. So, if it's a waw jama'ah, it's a dhamma. If it's the rest of these, then it's the noon, the niswa, and the na fa'il, then it's mabni ala sukoon. But the fi'l madi is mabni ala fatha. So, let's stop something real quick. We got a few minutes. One second. Take a second to pull up. Okay. Let's just read from here, even though this is further on, it's the Thalathatul Usul. Ba'athahu Allah. Allah sent him. Ba'atha. He sent. Allah sent. Right? He sent. Mabni al-fat. Past tense. Mabni al-fatha. Ila nasi kafatan. To all of the people. Waftarada ta'atahu. Waftarada, and he made obligatory. He made it. Mabni ala fatha. Waftarada. Aftarada is the verb. Aftarada. Ta'atahu ala jamia thaqalain. On all of the thaqalain, which are, and he made obligatory obedience to him on all of the thaqalain, which here he explains is the jinn and the ins. The jinn and the ins are called the two heavy ones. The humans and the jinn are called the two heavy ones. Those who took on the heavy responsibility of obeying Allah, right? And disobeying. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى قُلْ. Qul here is a fi'l amr. It's always going to have a sukoon on it. Always. Right? Except if it's talking to a girl, then it'll be quli, mabni ala sukoon with the ya. We'll learn that next week, inshallah. Ya ayyuhan nas inni rasulullah ilaykum jamia. O mankind, I am a messenger of Allah to all of you. Wa akmala Allahu bihi ad-din. Wa akmala, Allah completed. He completed. Allah completed. He completed, right? Mabni ala fatha. Right? Al-yawmu akmaltu. Al-yawma akmaltu. Akmaltu. Here's a ta mutaharrika, past tense verb, fil madi, mabni ala sukoon. Akmaltu. Lakum dinakum. Wa atmamtu. Mabni ala sukoon. Because of the ta mutaharrika. Wa raditu. Raditu, mabni ala sukoon. Raditu. We don't write the sukoon, but the sukoon is on the ya. Wa raditu. Mabni ala sukoon because of the ta al-mutaharrika. I am pleased with you, is Islam is your religion. وَالدَّلِيلُ على موته قوله تعالى إنك ميت وإنهم ميتون ثم إنكم يوم القيامة عند ربكم تختصمون. تختصمون here, this is a fi'l mudari. We haven't dealt with this yet. But it would change if you put something in front of it. It's possible to change because it's a fi'l mudari. Then you can say وَالنَّاسِ إِذَا مَاتُوا. مَاتُوا, past tense, if they died. مَاتُوا. Mabni ala dhamma. Why? Because of the waw jama'. Otherwise, mata is the actual original he died. Yub'athun, present tense verb. We don't worry about that. Right? Khalaqnahunna. Here we add the noon alif of the fa'il. The na. Even though it's written the na here is written with a small alif. Na. It's mabni ala sukoon because of the na al-fa'il. Right? When nu'eed, present tense, we don't worry about it. Right? When nukhrijukum, present tense, we're not going to worry about it right now. Wallah ambatakum. Ambata, to inform. Right? Anyway, this is not ambata. This is to make a flower or to make grow and all that. Ambata is to make grow, like nabata from plants. Right? Anyway, this is the purpose. If you didn't get a lot out of it, keep up with what you can from it, and you know, get what you take out of it. But later on in the future, you will be appreciative that if nothing else, I covered it and kind of understood it. So when you actually feel the need to study it later on, you'll be like, okay, I remember that a whole lot better. You know, because we just need to know that these things are mabni. We're basing all of our stuff on this chart here, which is right. Things are, verbs are mu'tal akhir, which are, some of them are weak in their ending. Doesn't matter if you have an alif or a fatha or a dhamma in the beginning. It doesn't matter. A alif, a fatha, a dhamma, like akala. I'm not worried about akala. That's not the end. Right? I'm worried about da'a at the end. That's what I'm worried about, the alif. I'm not worried about sa'ala, where the alif is in the middle. I'm only worried about da'a, where it's at the end. Right? And then, so these three, when it ends in something, an alif or a waw or a ya, then these are going to have different rules than, for instance, these are going to have different rules. Let's look at this rule here. Where's our rule? Fa'ala. This is mabni ala fatha, right? Da'a is mabni ala what? This alif has what on it? Doesn't have anything. It's mabni ala sukoon. I thought you said past tense he was mabni ala fatha. Yeah, that's unless they're mu'tal akhir. If they're weak in the end, if they have an alif or a waw or a ya, then they're not going to be mabni ala fatha. They have a different rule because they are mu'tal akhir. They're sick in their ending or weak in their ending. And then we talked about words being mu'rab and mabni, words having that change and words that don't change. Mu'rab means that the ending of the word changes due to something that came before it. And mabni means it never changes, always stays the same. Nothing, no matter what comes before it. And that's the fil madi, the fil amr, and huruf. And then we talked about the An-Nahw al-Bina. When something is mabni, we're not going to say, if it has a sukoon, we're not going to say it's majzoom. If it's mabni. When it has a fatha, we're not going to say it's mansoob. We're going to say it's mabni al-fat. If it has a dhamma on the end of it, we're not going to say it's marfu'. We're going to say it's mabni ala dhamma. If it has a kasra on the end of it, we're not going to say it's majroor. We're going to say it's mabni ala kasra. Right? And then the An-Nahw al-I'rab, then that's what we're going to talk about, marfu', mansoob, majroor, and majzoom. This is all background information. This is inside Ajrumiyya. There's no doubt. This is inside Ajrumiyya. It's just taking it in a different order because it breaks it down in a much more simple way. Well, I don't know what else I can say except maybe to keep saying it in a different way, and that might help or it might confuse. Might help or it might confuse. So just know that these words are mebni, the past tense verbs, but they're mebni in different ways. Some are on a fatha, some are on a sukoon, and some are on a dhamma. Ayib.
Yep.
I hope that helped you, Zubair. If not, I'm sorry.
It did. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.